Welcome everyone to the third Thursday meetup of the West Orlando WordPress Meetup Group. I'm Rob Watson, a co-organizer and host. West Orlando WordPress is an official WordPress meetup group and is affiliated with the main WordPress Orlando and WordCamp US meetup groups. Tonight we are sponsored by ChipBot, a face-to-face video, live chat, and a knowledge base, all in one easy-to-use tool for your website. ChipBot produces software that helps both businesses and their clients during any online interaction. ChipBot's WordPress plugin is easy to use, and the service can act as both a doorman and an aide, welcoming customers and assisting them with the questions that will move you closer to a sale. Visit chipbot.com today and sign up for a free account. Use promo code WOWP to get 50% off your first month. In this session, we'll define what plugins are, what they do, who can build a plugin, and what's in the WordPress plugin repository. We'll figure out how to find the plugin you need and how to choose one that works and is safe. Consider making your own list of must-have plugins, and we'll look at ways to deal with plugin updates. Dr. Sue Polinsky was the founder and president of TechTriad, which opened in 1998, a Greensboro-based full-service technology firm. One of North Carolina's oldest female-owned technology firms, Sue grew the company until semi-retiring in 2021 when she opened GetMeOnline.today to grow clients' online presence and help them start podcasting, vlogging, and publishing eBooks. She started the Extreme Nonprofit Makeover and for 16 years gifted a free full-tech makeover to a local nonprofit each year. In addition to being recognized nationally as one of the original internet strategists and WordPress experts in the Triad area, Sue is a community advocate and serial volunteer, dedicated to improving the city where she lives. Sue is the mother of 2 perfect children, a doting grandmother of 3, and lives in Greensboro with her husband David, an attorney, and their rescued Bichon, Mumfie, whose only skill is looking pretty. At this point, I'd like to invite everyone to mute their microphones for the presentation. Sue, thank you for being our presenter this evening. The time is now yours.
Well, thank you. Welcome, everybody. So, plugins are a blessing and a curse. They do wonderful things. And then this morning, one of the plugins I count on I pay for this plugin, started throwing critical errors on our website. We have a can't find your site database problem. And they did fix it by this evening, but plugins are a blessing and a curse. So when you want to plug in, when you want to do anything on your WordPress site beyond what core WordPress does, you're going to need a plugin. And we have a t-shirt for that. So who am I? Unfortunately, Rob told you everything about me, but these are my facts. I do come from Amityville. And the only interesting thing about that, other than my cousins bought the house after the murders, is that the first boy I ever kissed in the 5th grade was an unindicted co-conspirator in the murders. So that's my claim to fame. I went to school with the guy who murdered his family. I think he died. But this is kind of that's who I am. My contact is there. You're welcome to use it. All righty. What do plugins do? Very straightforward. They do things on the front. They do things on the back. So on the front, what can you see? You're looking at all these choices. You want a calendar, you want events, you get a plugin for that. You want it, in some cases, to change layouts and colors, you need a plugin. Pricing tables, e-commerce, membership sites. There are plugins that do all of this. WordPress core doesn't come with a lot of these things, or it comes with a basic one and you want one that's a little fancier. So what do they do on the back? They do the tools that help people like me sleep better. They back up my site when I'm sleeping. They add security. I get notices. We've blocked this many people, They block spam comments. Gosh, do they do stuff for e-commerce? If your media library has like 1 million things in it, you can get a plugin that organizes them. You can add custom code. You can do a lot more plugins, do all the things. They extend WordPress. There's a rare site that doesn't use a few plugins. If you've got one, it's probably fairly straightforward and basic and old. Plugins are cool. You just have to know how to use them and what they do. So how do you build the plugin? Well, you can go get them that other people have built at wordpress.org. We're going to go there shortly. They're free. However, they are freemium, which means you get a basic plugin for free, but you can go buy the pro version that's going to do a whole lot more and probably the thing you need. Anybody can build a plugin. You submit it to the repository. We'll go there in a minute. And it has to be approved that it's, not malicious, meets the rules. There are a lot of rules. They're very, very, well, I don't want to say picky, particular, that there are some rules. In fact, there was a plugin thrown out, just banned from the repository because they broke a rule in support. In the free support on the free plugin, they asked somebody for their username and password so they could go log in and look at the problem. A war started, we call it WP drama, and they got thrown out and they resigned, and it was now, anyway, it happens to be a plugin that a whole lot of people use. It's called the Modern Events Calendar, or MEC calendar, and it's still an issue. They're working on it. They have to be approved, they have to be checked, they have to meet the rules, and you can find free plugins there. And if you have never been there, that would surprise me, but it's okay. Now, the most popular plugin authors are those across the bottom. Yoast, you're probably familiar with the SEO plugin. Automatic with 2 T's is the retail side of WordPress. They bought WooCommerce. They produced Jetpack and made it better. They make a Kismet, which some people rely on for spam protection. WordFence, Contact Form 7, and WooCommerce. Those are the most popular authors. So how many people are using their plugins? Those numbers are in millions. So Yoast is 176 million. And you can look at the rest of them. People are using them. So what does that mean? It means they're good plugins. They do the job. Contact Form 7, for example, it's free. 112 million people use it. It drives me crazy. I think it's the most difficult plugin in the world to do anything other than send a contact form. And a Kismet blocks spam comments, but you have to connect it to your WordPress.com account, which I think is unnecessarily complicated, but that's WordPress. They built it. You got to do it. Yoast is cool. I'm sure a lot of you have used it. Jetpack just made a really good advance. The thing about Jetpack is that it was like the heaviest program on the planet. It was, it just loaded all this stuff that most people don't need. And because of that, we always said, don't use it. Now it only loads the checks you put in boxes. So that's a very good improvement. And WooCommerce, I'm sure you've heard of it. That's what they look like. You've probably seen their logos somewhere. Okay, so these are the most popular. So if you're using them, you're in the cool kid crowd. Now, there are some challenges with finding a plugin that you want. First, the repository where all the plugins are, boy, do they need a better search. Searches are really difficult to find what you mean if you don't have that really exact little word. The second thing is that authors give their plugins very strange names. And if you're looking for a plugin and you don't know their strange name, it's a little hard to find them. You have to kind of back up and get more general. And then finally, you need the exact keyword. So if you want a site that does something and you just search on, like you want a membership site and you want to know what plugins are available to you for membership. If you search on members, you're not going to get exactly what you want. If you search on membership, you're going to get 2/3 of what you really want. It's a little tricky, but I will compliment, and I wish I knew the right company. It's either Bluehost or DreamHost. I think it's DreamHost. And the way they sponsor or give back to the WordPress community is they pay the salary of the gal who runs the repository. And I think she gets 60 or 70% of her time to run the repository, which is kind of cool. And they get some of her time and they get, credit for it. So we're going to now take a look at the repository. We're going to stop the PowerPoint at some point and go look at a real website. But in the repository, I'm logged in. You should get an account. It's free. Doesn't hurt anybody. Doesn't cost anything. They don't spam you. So do that, log in, get an account. And then you search. That's about all you can do on this site is search for a plugin. And then when you find a plugin, now you have to ask yourself, is this what I want? Is this any good? So the first thing you do is log in. The second one is add your keyword, look at the results, and take a very close look. And here's what you want to look for. I picked the events calendar because it came up, but I know some guys that work at Modern Tribe. And you want to look at the last day it was updated. And the last update, and now this is a month or two old, but they update all the time. There's 800,000 active installs. That's not downloads. That's actively running now. And it's they work with every version of WordPress, and they are just very cool people. They support their plugin. The other thing you want to do is look at the ratings. Their ratings are overwhelmingly positive. And there's a lot of them. It's not like, two gals on the left coast rated it and there's there's two positives. Now there's a lot. And there's something else you should do. When you use a plugin, it does what you want. You should give it a rating, which is why you want to log in to WordPress.org. It helps them out. You want more good free plugins, give them a rating, and it helps them. So it's that's Matt's vision for WordPress. I agree with him. So give them a rating. Okay. Be careful of the ones that are deprecated. There are some that people encourage me to use that are just fine. They're deprecated because they haven't been updated, because they don't need to be updated. They do this tiny job and it's okay. You can use it, but boy, I don't. But there are people who are very smart, build really good websites, and they do it. I would not recommend it unless you know what you're doing. Okay, so I have plugins that I use, and in a minute, I'm going to ask you to put into the chat one plugin that is like, I can't build a website without this plugin, because we're going to make a list of them. It'll go in the PowerPoint that I send to the West Orlando folks that they can share if they want. So these are the ones I like. These are plugins that are all free, and they do things that have become important. Local Google fonts. What that does is it loads your Google fonts before the site loads or with the site load, because if you don't do that, it's pulling fonts from Google when the site is live, which is a violation of the GDPR, the European 88 pages of insanity rules on, I actually had a lawyer read them because I have an in-house attorney who's in the kitchen. And he said and he's an IP lawyer. He said it's just 88 pages of insanity. It makes no sense. However, If you load your Google fonts first, then download them to your server, then you don't break the GDPR. Sitekit by Google, if you use Google Analytics, if you use any of the Google tools, Sitekit by Google takes care of a whole bunch of stuff. You can put your analytics code in there. You can put in your tag manager. You can go to GA4. You can do everything in Sitekit. And when Google drops UA next year, your universal analytics, if you make all your changes right there in Sitekit, you don't have to do anything else. It's very handy. Yoast, I don't suppose I have to, tell you about Yoast. I think most people are familiar with it. Disable comments is something I've been using for years, and now we're working with tools that disable them for you. But if you're working with a theme that doesn't, that's fabulous if you don't want comments. WP Mail SMTP can be critically important. What it does is, have you ever tried to get email from your website to somebody and they tell you they never got it, or you never get it? It happens all the time. Some web servers will not send email. Some of them will send 5 an hour, and it could be like 45 minutes before you get that email. Some of them just, if you're on a shared server and there's like 100 sites there, if there's one site on that server that has been flagged by Spam House or anybody else for being bad, they just blacklisted your entire server. Your mail's not sending. WP Mail SMTP lets you send mail outside of your server, and your mail will go through and it'll most likely not get spammed. So it's a free tool. It's great. Custom post type UI, if you are an ACF, if you are building custom post types, and I'll show you some in a minute, those two tools are free and they are invaluable. ACF makes a pro version, and sure, you can do a lot more with the pro version, but you can build custom post types with those. So I like them. If you use Gravity Forms, we do. All you need is Gravity Forms, zero spam, and you can get rid of Google reCAPTCHA. Zero spam is free. It works like a charm, and you don't have to go through the reCAPTCHA hard. It's just, and it's great. Opt-in Monster, I'm not thrilled with, but a lot of people like it. You can't use it unless you create an account with them, but that's free too. I just didn't like that. I like keeping my stuff on WordPress. Search WP is great if you need a really good search on your site. Better search and replace is fabulous if like you have to change something throughout your site. And then there'll be a backup plugin, a forms plugin, and a security plugin. You probably need one of each. I would have one of each. I know your web host says that they back up your site. I would not trust them. I like to back up my site. Helps Sue sleep better at night. And I can get a backup on the server, and I can get a backup magically sent to Dropbox, Google Docs, Amazon S3, if you're smart enough to figure out how to connect it, and a lot of other places. So I am really a fan of backup plugins. Forms, everybody needs a form. I think everybody needs security, but my kids call me Susie Security. So, I'm like that. Okay. Then there's media plugins. The first one, who I don't know how to pronounce, is what it does is when you upload an image, it optimizes it and it turns it into a WebP file. And you have an option to keep your original JPEG that probably came off your camera and is like this big, or delete it and only keep the WebP. But it's just a really good, it's free. I think it's better to use it when you build the site rather than try to go backwards and have it do that. Because on the free version, it'll do 50 a day. And if you've got 2,000 pictures, you got a couple of days. Firebird and Real Media Library do the same thing. They're both free. They're both good. And what they do is they let you put folders into your media library so that I've got a folder in every site I do called logos and everybody's picture. It doesn't change the link to the picture. You can put it on a site at any time, make some folders, just drag your pictures into the folders and you got organization. I like organization. SVG support. SVG is another image format. And if you're a Photoshop user or get SVGs from a logo developer, you can't upload them very easily. And the reason it says maybe is I think SVG support's coming in 6.02 WordPress, which is coming out October. So you may or may not need that one. Those are some of the plugins that I really like. Then we've got specialty plugins. If you want to run a membership site, these three are free. I'm a fan of Ultimate Member only because I've used it several times. And we will occasionally buy one of his $29 extras to do something we want. Members, membership, and user role editor, which is one word. I told you they named their plugins funny. And then BuddyPress, they're all good for membership sites. And for a membership site, people have to log in, they have to register, they have to, in some cases, pay for their membership. So you want something that's set up to take money. And then you can offer different levels of membership. There's all kinds of things. Membership sites are cool. I've heard of these. I don't use most of them, but they're fine. Elementor I put in because I thought Beth might be here. Beth is a big Elementor fan and she knows I don't like it. Jetpack, I mentioned Elementor, Kismet, and Google XML sitemaps is good, but if you use Yoast, you don't need it because there's a sitemap built into Yoast. So those are good. And then there's everything that goes with WooCommerce. Now, I only picked out that WooCommerce is free. Everything else that you want to attach to WooCommerce is going to cost money. And if you buy them from Woo, we're not talking about a little bit of money. I haven't seen much there that's under $70, $80, or $90 a year. And some of them are like $129. Who comes up with $129? $125 is a good number. But anyway, so I went through our WooCommerce sites to see which plugins we'd been using and were they any good. So these are the ones that we liked. And later when you can download this, they're all linked to where they go. But you can always go to the repository and search on that name. So something as simple as a wish list. We had a client that was selling furniture, but not selling it online. So you would put it into your wish list and then email it to them and they would come back with a price estimate. And disable bloat is great because WooCommerce adds a whole bunch of stuff to your site you don't need. So, and it slows your site down. So you disable the bloat. Yith had a problem recently. And if I'm not mistaken, the person who had the problem with it is sitting up there in the top right corner of my screen. Yith is really good stuff. I like their stuff, but they had one plugin that was kind of weird. But I've seen some really good Woo extra plugins. One of the things that's not on here, if you're a Cadence user, they just came out with a site kit that does everything for WooCommerce. It's really fabulous. Okay, you can get free plugins, but that very thing you want is probably only available in the paid version. So they'll give you all kinds, of course they do. You know, like the events calendar has a free version. It's got a pro version. The main difference is recurring events. You can't get recurring events unless you have the pro version, and that's the thing everybody wants. So they're not stupid, but again, nobody's going to be developing things for free and giving them away. They have to pay their mortgages. They have to feed their family. So we support the developers who are doing a good job. Okay, so now let's take a look at my plugin policies. These are Sue's rules. If you know who that is, you'll know what's coming. As soon as you find a plugin, you're going to find 5 more that do the same thing, and you're not going to know which one to get. So my policy is Don't put more than one plugin on your site that does the same thing. It just weighs down your site, slows it down. There's 5 extra plugins to have to update. Find the one you want. Number 2, don't install a cherry pitter. A cherry pitter goes with this guy on the right, Alton Brown. He runs I forget the name of his show, it's a cooking show. And one of his mantras is he will not have anything in his kitchen that only does one thing. Cherry pitters do one thing. They pick cherries. I have one. But on your website, don't put a plugin that only does this little tiny thing, because more than likely you can get it to do that somehow else. Too many plugins is just not a good idea. And one that only does one thing, unless it's critical, don't do it. Great plugins have all kinds of people writing plugins that help them. So if you have the events calendar and you don't like the colors it's displaying in or the fonts, somebody wrote a plugin to help control, change the font, do this, do that. It's a popular plugin. I think it's a little clunky. And I talked to the people at Modern Tribe. Why aren't you shipping with that? Why do I have to write custom CSS when I can get this free plugin that says titles will be this font? Why aren't you shipping with that? And they pretty much said, that's not what we do. We build calendars. And they don't want to put anybody else out of business who's doing supportive stuff for them. It's weird. I just couldn't believe they didn't ship with, what color do you want the title to be? And then take a look at other people who you trust who do good websites. Look at their favorites. You can look at their favorites. Yes, you can. Let's learn how to look at people's favorites, because this is like news to some people. Here we go. You go to the repository, and if you notice up on the top right, I'm logged in. It's my initials and then the word online. And I clicked on my favorites. And that's all you have to do. You log in, you make favorites out of plugins, you click the little heart, and then you've got favorites. And for somebody like me, who has historically built one website after another, and sometimes 2 at once, if you're sitting there one day going, oh man, I used this tool on this site. What was that called? What site was it? And you're logging into every site you ever built, trying to find that plugin. If you make favorites, then you know which it is. Because I tested like 2 or 3 membership systems. And I said, okay, I like this one. Now, if I go back a year later, I'm not going to remember which one that was. So I make a favorite out of it. And when you have a login, you can see your favorites, but so can we. What you do is you go on your own site. We're going to do this in a minute. And then you click like you're going to upload a new plugin, and you type in somebody's name. Now you have to know their name, but I just told you mine and half of whoever watches the video. SLP Online, and you can plug that in. And then all of a sudden you're going to see my favorites on your website. We're going to do that in just a minute. I'll show you exactly how it works. This is my list of plugins that I use so frequently, and some of them are licensed. I keep them in folders, and I keep my licenses in those folders. And if I want to start a new site, I'm just going to go through those folders and pick the ones I want. And sometimes I have the latest version, sometimes I don't, but I've got everything there, and they all do different things. I mean, I've got one called Slider Revolution. I have not used that in 4 or 5 years, but I still got it because it's got a license. So I keep them all there on my hard drive. When I'm starting a new site, I pick the ones I want. And I managed to get them all on one screen. I wasn't sure I could do that. There's a lot. Okay, let's take a look at WooCommerce. These plugins that work with Woo, some of them you get from Woo and some are not Woo. But you want to know when you start something like a membership site. And one of the things you want on a membership site is a page that shows all the members, whatever they care to share, their avatar, their name, whatever. You'll find that the free version of memberships plugins don't always have that page, and you have to buy that little extra piece. And then you find out that somebody on the WordPress repository has that free plugin. So it's a game, but Woo is the best for it because everybody and his grandmother is making Woo plugins. So if you have something you want WooCommerce to do, there's a plugin for that. Okay, so what are yours? Now, I would ask you to add them to the chat because what we've got here are blank spaces where I'm going to add them and put them into the PDF or whatever we send. So if you will, please put in the chat the link to your go-to plugin. And then at the end of this recording thing, when we get into Q&A, we're gonna talk about your favorites because that's as important as mine. Although
I've already started. There's a whole bunch of them in there for you.
Yeah, I'm looking at that. Okay, WordFence maintenance. Oh yeah, maintenance mode. Oh, Yoast duplicate post. Yeah, that's one that is that one. I just need to make my chat window bigger. I didn't quite realize. Okay. Oh, look at this postmark. Yeah. Anti-spam. Oh, who's using Clean? If you're using Clean Talk, if you're using it for Gravity Forms, you can use Gravity Forms 0 spam instead. Clean Talk is strict and you can get some false positives on there, but they're good. Yeah, CPT custom fields. Oh, short pixel image optimizer. In the groups I hang out with, which are just geeks, we've had many discussions recently about short pixel and EWWW and a couple of others. And apparently people are leaning toward this new one because I think short pixel, if that's what I'm thinking the right one, Karen, okay. You're using Clean Talk, but the short pixel one I think got very expensive recently. But anyway, let's go back and see about security. This morning, I got 5 or 8 notices from my security plugin that I had sites that had that lovely database error, can't connect. And I get up early and I barely had coffee before I saw them. And it is not the way I like to start my day. So I looked at each site and they looked just fine. And I'm like, all day long, I'm getting notices that site scans are failing, can't connect to the database. And I'm like, all right, this can't be my sites. This has to be something else. So I spent most of the day trying to figure out what it was until 2 o'clock. And at 2 o'clock is when when a company called iThemes has webinars and you can ask questions and they answer questions. And I said, has anybody, why am I, and the guys from the plugin who built the plugin, we know about it. It's a known issue. We are all working on it. And the thing is, right before I joined this webinar, I got a notice they have an update out. So from this morning till tonight, they fixed this issue. The issue was with PHP 8, that the plugin worked fine with 7.4, but it was throwing an error in 8. So there was a problem. So you can get for free from iThemes the WordPress vulnerability report, and it will tell you which plugins are, it's free, they don't spam you, and you can get that delivered to your mailbox. It gives you a list of like, these plugins have a problem. If they're on your website, update them now. And then it gives you a list at the bottom of plugins that have been abandoned And if you've got this on your site, get it off your site. It's very, very helpful. It's free and you can get it at that link, but there's more. We'll do this in a minute when we end PowerPoint. And that's me. That's a wrap. So if you need my stuff, contact information, you can find me anywhere. And I am pretty online. So what I want to do is bring up, now you're looking at my thing here in just a minute. Let me get my browser over here. Okay. And I think you can see that, right? Can see my browser? Okay, let's start over here. This is a website that I keep for, this is a test site. It's called Test. And this is where you break things. This is where you put stuff in. I have plugins that come and go all the time. And they're just stuff I use to play with. My most recent set of playing was with Table Press. And I don't care if the site crashes because I just started again. Not a problem. It's always good to have one of these. So what you got over here is a custom post type, which is made with custom post. And we've got advanced custom fields. We have pro, but I started with regular. Plugins are the kind of thing that you just, by the way, this and I did this one, we're not friends. But there are some cool things. Now I mentioned about take a look at my favorites. So you go to plugins, you click add new, and then over here it says favorites. So you click favorites, and then you have to know my name or anybody else's. And if you've got a login and you keep favorites, then you should tell us in the chat if you're willing to share. And then when you click get favorites for me, then you're looking at my favorites. There are 26 of them. And some of them I use all the time and some of them I don't use much, but that's what I use. So you can find mine and you don't have to ask me what I like, and I can find yours if I know your username at wordpress.org. So when you go to the repository and you try, when you first get there, every time you reload the page, you're going to get different plugins. They're just kind of telling you about all kinds of plugins. And then you have featured plugins. And then you have, look at that, 5 million. And then you've got betas, which I would recommend not messing with unless you really know what you're doing. And then you've got favorites that are from other people. And they're not my favorites, but they're favorites, so they're cool. So you can search a plugin. So if I want, let's do something, comments. I want to disable comments. So I just go search for comments. And now there's all kinds of comment things here. And you have to figure out which is the one you want. So if you don't know the name of it, then you start reading. Now, in this particular case, I did mention this before, and it's got 1 million installations. One of the first things I'm going to look at. And it's also got a bunch of stars. There's a good story behind this one. The guy who built this, he just did it because he wanted it and gave it to the world. And he got a little older and he didn't want to keep maintaining it. And he got a little tired. So he put it up for auction. And the money that he got for the auction went to this kid's charity that he likes. And then the people who bought it, which is WP Developer, they're maintaining it now as a service to the cost of money, and it's free. It's just how WordPress works. So when you start looking at comments, I mean, I don't know why I'm getting securities and firewalls. The search is not great. The search is, you need to know what you're looking for. But again, I'm happy that we have this. You can also find any kind of plugin you want by going to a higher level, more generic term. And I would not have searched a few years ago on the word disable comments. I would have done cancel comments, go away comments, trash comments, but disable wasn't my vocabulary. So you just keep going. You keep trying, you keep looking. And sometimes I just look around to see what's there. So in my favorites, let's just pretend I like this one. I don't, but let's just pretend. All I have to do is click that little heart and it becomes one of my favorites. When I want to look at my favorites, then they're all here, and there are some good things. If you have a client and you want them to see their analytics inside the website, do something like that. Because there are clients that should not be logging into analytics. They have the right to, but they shouldn't. If you want to, this one helped me out amazingly when we combined 5 multi-sites into one site, and we had to get rid of posts, because you can go into WordPress on a post and you can add a tag or a category, but you can't delete them. And they just said, we don't think people should be deleting posts from categories. And so we've got that plugin. And then there's just all kinds of things that do particular things. Extendify is great. Gravity Forms Zero Spam is one of my favorites. And there are all kinds of things that I keep saying to myself, I can use that one day. So that's what in fact, I've even got 2 pages. So if you're looking for good plugins or a good other meetup, stay with this one. Chris Kindred is the guy I know who runs our local meetup. He works for Modern Tribe and he is terrific. So if you're interested, go there. And then if you go to iThemes training, on the free training events, you do not have to pay a nickel. Every month, excuse me, Nathan does a news roundup and a plugin roundup. It's a Zoom thing. You can go for free. You can ask questions. He's going to talk about the newest plugins. He's going to talk about the WordPress news. And that's where I learn plugins that I want to add to my favorites, because I wouldn't have known them. But you can go to training.ithemes.com. You can sign up. I do not resell for them. This is just a good source, and you can get information. So that is pretty much what I've got.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for everything you prepared for us today. We'll go ahead and
I have fun.